Hey there, it's Les Sulgrove, statewide housing analyst for the Iowa Association of Realtors. We just released July market statistics, and the good news out there right now is we continue to see inventory build, and that's good news for home buyers because it's giving them a little bit extra time to maybe look at homes and also a little more variety. So let's kind of jump into this week's or this month's show. This is July. Let's take a peek here and see kind of what's happening in the real estate market. And this is an inventory level showing you year over year as well as month over month. So, of current homes for sale in the state of Iowa. We're currently sitting as of the July report at a little over 7,700 homes for sale. And you compare that to a year ago at 5,700, we're still maintaining that about 2,000 more homes on the market pace than we were last year. So this is really the good sign. And we saw a decent increase from June to July as well, 7,400 last month to 7,721. Now this is for the single family properties. To look at the condo townhomes, we're seeing a little bit of a dip there. We didn't quite maintain that same pace, but we're still fairly ahead of the same time last year when we had 1,200 homes on the market that were in the condo townhome category. So the big news, and we're going to talk more about this probably next month, but the big news right now is that the Federal Reserve Chair is most likely and almost certainly, from what I'm hearing now, going to make a rate reduction on the Federal Reserve rate. And we expect that to happen over here sometime in early September. And I brought this graphic in because this graphic pretty much shows you that it's been prior to January of 2022 that we have actually seen the Federal Reserve make a rate reduction. In fact, we saw nothing but rate increases in 2022. Early 2023, it continued at a little bit slower pace, and now in 2020, late 2023, and all the way through 2024 so far, we have the Federal Reserve rate has remained at that 5.5%, the borrowing rate. This is not mortgage rates, but it's indirectly going to affect that. You can see that currently the rates as of August 22nd are below 6.5%, and we'll talk about that next month because this all kind of happened after August. And so since this is a July report, I'm going to just kind of focus on this, and we'll come back and visit this again next month, and you'll see why in a second here. So let's kind of take a look at some a little deeper look at inventory. Now, this is the graphic. This also shows new listings, but this is the number of homes that were added to the market each month. And what you can kind of see here is that the pace is a little bit different here. 3,893 in July versus 3,720, 3,871 last month. So while we're building inventory, we're not maybe necessarily adding as many homes to the market. And you go, how does that happen? If we're continuing to add, it just means that homes are not selling at quite that same pace. And so what I want to do is kind of do an overlay of the mortgage interest rates. And so I've taken away the monthly new listings for just a second, and I've brought in the 30-year average mortgage interest rate graphic. And this is showing you where mortgage interest rates were at the end of every month going back to January of 2023. And you can see that for the most part, we've stayed pretty well between 6 and 8%. Last year was pretty much a rising year for the mortgage interest rates. If you recall, the Federal Reserve was raising rates there at a pretty steady clip in 2023. This also kind of shows what happened during that period of time. And we all remember last October, the rates continued to rise. Mortgage rates continued to rise based on Federal Reserve actions. And then around October, all of a sudden, we got some economic news. There was a lot of talk about the Fed was going to start to cut the Federal Reserve rate. That actually never happened, that the rates were cut, but it was enough to spur the market down here. And you can see here that the months of October, November, December, we had, from October through the end of December, we had some pretty good drops of interest rates. It went from almost 8% back down to, 6.5 or so there, or just under 6.5, just under 7, I should say. This year has been much less volatile, although we did see kind of the interest rates start to take a rise a little bit here as we moved into April, but now they've kind of started to settle down. And you purposely, you're going to say, oh, but less, the Federal Reserve is below this rate right now. That's because, again, this is the end of July. The August 5th was the date where the interest rates really started to drop dramatically. And so we'll revisit this graphic next month. But let's bring back in those homes listed each month going back to 2023. And a couple things I want to point out here. I'm going to bring this little graphic over the top and show you this is the spring markets. This is April, May, June. This is when the majority of homes come onto the market that are going to come onto the market. And last year we saw this actually began in March. We saw March inventory around 3,500 and then it coming on. And it steadily increased through the month of June, at which point we get to that summer market and things kind of slow down just a little bit. Well, if we look over here in 2024, we saw that same action. Actually, February, March, and April were good lead-in months. April and May were good, but then we get to June, and this is when the market kind of really started to slow down more as far as home sellers. Honestly, I think the best way to describe this is I think home buyers have a trust issue and home sellers have a trust issue with mortgage rates. And, they were, even though we saw mortgage rates kind of slowly come down, there wasn't a lot of talk at this time of year about the Federal Reserve reducing the prime borrowing rate. And it wasn't until we got into late July and early August that we actually determined that that was going to happen. So again, this is going to be an interesting graphic to look at next month to see when this rate actually drops closer to that 6.5% rate where we currently are today, to see what happens with the listing inventory. My guess is going to be that I think that home sellers are still going to be a little bit shy, not only because of that trust issue I mentioned earlier, but also we're getting closer to the end of the year. And as we get closer to the end of the year, if you look back here, it's just natural when we get past September, into October, November, December, we start to see fewer homes come on the market. And we're kind of coming into that period. So um, if we see anything different than the trending, then we'll report that and we'll kind of try to analyze what's happening. I overlaid this same mortgage interest rate line chart over the number of homes going under contract. So this is the number of homes actually accepting offers during the month over month. And you can kind of see, let's just drop that spring markets back in there again for just a quick second. You can kind of see again that regardless of maybe where rates are going, when homes are being sold, home buyers are out there buying. They're predominantly buying in that April, May, June, early March, April, May, June, depending on the weather. This year, you can see that we saw the buildup fairly quickly. And I think a lot of that had to do with the rates dropping near the end of last year. There was a lot of confidence and home buyers said, you know what, let's go ahead and get out there. This might be as good as it gets for interest rates, and true to form, they kind of started to drop just a little bit there in March. But then again, when we get into that April, May, June, when the Federal Reserve finally went back and said, I don't think we're going to have rate increases this year, even though we are now going to have one in September. I think that kind of took the wind out of home buyer sales, and this is one of the reasons why I think that we've seen a slowdown in sale pending. So again, we'll watch both of these two graphics, the weekly or the monthly listings added as well as the monthly pending sales here. A couple of additional graphics before we end the show this month. Again, this is looking at closed sales. You can see that June and July were a little bit more active. At least June was more active last year. We're pretty much right on track looking at 3191 homes actually closed in the month of June this year versus 3104. So we're a little bit ahead of pace, but not by very much. But it is kind of steadying out. And of course, if you remember, closed sales are a product of pending sales. So if we saw pending sales a little bit higher a month ahead of time, this is going to trail by about that month because it takes about a month for homes to close in our marketplace. As far as the condo townhome sales, similar look here. You can see, although they tailed off a little bit more, and they only bring around 400 to 500 closed sales each month into the closed status for condo townhomes, but you can kind of see that same pattern happening there. So as far as pricing goes, the median sale price of single family homes is still about $15,000 higher than it was a year ago. We were at 235, we're at 249.9, which is just $100 off of June. So we are basically maintaining our higher pricing as we move into the fall. And I do expect that to start to trend downward a little bit. We'll start to see some of the lower priced homes that are left on the market, sell, or maybe there's a little bit more negotiations bringing that down. But I just do tend to feel like we're going to see just a very, very slight drop in median sale price, probably nothing below that 225 this year, just by the way the market feels, but we could be surprised by that. As far as condo townhomes, they did kind of make that little adjustment. In fact, they're right exactly where they were last year in July at 245,000 is the median sale price. So um, condo townhomes are their own animal. It looks like August those increased and then didn't start to go down until we got into that November, December, January market here. So we'll see if that tends to be the same that we'll see for this month. But basically, that's the show this month. We will see you all again about 30 days from now. We'll talk about August sales and also how mortgage interest rates have affected the marketplace at that point. So thanks again for joining me. My name is Les Sulgrove. I am the statewide housing analyst for the Iowa Association of Realtors, and we'll see you all again next month.